real-life challenges that you will have experienced in developing courses that are responsive to industry requirements. And I'm in a perfect situation to listen to you and to write them down, and that's going to be my role, to try and capture the experience you've had in responding to what, in my experience, is a very demanding industry. Aquaculture producers are never shy being critical of what you're trying to do, but don't necessarily always then come up with the solution themselves that they might want. So either positive or negative experiences that you've had in responding to industry requirements in your various roles. Have you all worked with, or your institutes worked with industry representatives?
In my experience, we do have collaboration with the industry, and some of the research projects are in collaboration with the industry. But I haven't been involved in a situation where the industry has raised a challenge and we have responded to that. So there is a lot of, collaboration going on. I don't know.
So have any of you been in a situation where you have been delivering course material and found yourself wondering, why are we doing this? And in discussion with colleagues, it's been explained that historically there has been a request for something, or no? So that situation's never arisen? I'm just trying to think of alternative ways. Do you, in your various institutions, do you find industry coming to you, making requests?
I don't think they are coming to us with a request, but we are meeting the industry in different at different meetings, and we are visiting them, and then they talk about their challenges, and we try to adapt those challenges in our education.
And what sort of meetings are those? Where are you encountering?
It could be a study visit with students to the industry, to the production side, to the processing industry, or different kind.
Research projects.
Yes,
sometimes you meet because you are together in a research project, and then they
Okay, and for the processing and the students, is that placements and things like that?
Sorry?
Do you mean with the students, when you said on the
Yeah,
processing
so
side, is that
go
placements that you're putting?
to salmon slaughterhouse, for instance. Then the industry will talk about how they, why they have make this. They'll talk about how they are doing the slaughtering process, what kind of challenges they have in the process, if there is an equipment that doesn't work well. They're talking about that, and sometimes we have that could be idea for new projects. That could be idea for master projects, bachelor thesis, and of course PhD thesis as well.
But really then it sounds like the research projects are the major interface that you have with the industry.
Or student project as well.
What would a student project be rather than
could be a bachelor thesis or a master thesis in cooperation or given by the industry. So they have a problem to solve, and they make contact with us, and we put on a student in that project. And then the industry pay for the costs. and the students are they can be in the industry for 2 or 3 months working on that project.
Right.
In Scotland, for example, there is the Scottish Aquaculture Innovation Centre, SAIC, and SAIC funds a number of master's students every year, and then in return for this funding, the master's students have to do a project that is directly linked to one of the challenges that SAIC has identified as challenges for the industry.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and these projects are normally in direct partnership with a company that is within SAIC, so it's registered within the innovation center. But even if you don't have a direct industry collaborator, you have to tackle one of the challenges that have been identified by the industry.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So really, it's projects rather than courses. Is a better way that question could be phrased. If in doubt, criticise the question, and let's write the question that we should have been asked rather than the question we want to answer. Let's take that approach. Okay.
I think and you always try not to put when you're doing your teaching to put case studies, that they are as real and as meaningful as possible. But there is no requirement for doing that. But it's more like, well, you know that's going to be more relevant for the students, so you try to do that. But there is no requirement by the university to do that. Or the course director.
Is that a similar? So that's a Northern European situation. Is it a similar situation with yourselves in your countries, that the majority of interaction with industry is through projects, be it research projects or student projects?
Yeah, in Myanmar we are at the beginning. So to receive support from the industry, it's from industrial side, it's a little bit weak in cooperation with the education. So sometimes it's very difficult for us how to link with the industry.
And who designs the course syllabus then that you deliver?
Now we are trying to develop the curriculum. We are in the beginning. Starting from December, we will start the course for fishery science. So now we are developing the curriculum from some expertise, with the help of some expertise, like from Wageningen University and also from Ghent University, and like this. So now we are developing for the curriculum. But we don't have, after 2 or 3 years, we will revise this curriculum is relevant with our country's situation or not.
Okay. But it's being developed with other academic institutions who are feeding into designing your course. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Right. Very good. And how about in Vietnam?
You mentioned about the shortcut for the company or the program for students. Mm-hmm. You mentioned about the shortcut. You mentioned about the shortcut for the industry. You want the program, curricular program for the student. Because we had for Vietnamese, especially for my university, we sometimes we offer the shortcut for training the company staff, such as the water quality management, feed disease, and also nutrition requirement.
Right. So short course, and how long do those short courses
normally it's
last?
The 5 day or 1 week.
Oh, so very
Yeah.
short.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
yeah, short.
Right. Right.
And the other one, we sometimes the company ask us to do some experiment for them. If they had a new chemical or new ingredient, so they ask us to join for the small project to do the test for that product.
And who has developed those short courses? Did the
Normally,
industry
yeah.
tell you what they wanted,
Yeah,
or
when,
did they come
yeah,
to you
yeah,
for advice?
Yeah. When the company come to my university, the first they will meet the dean, and after that they give the problem. So the dean will set the lecturer responsible for that topic. For example, for water quality management, the dean will ask me to prepare the course, and after that they give the company, and we can discuss about if one is good or no good, and we can change a little bit for that course.
Right. And coming from the UK, as I do, were a company to come to an academic institution like that, the academic institution would say, yes, we can do that, and it will cost you this amount of money because education is short of funding, so there's always an approach to look for more money. And is that a similar situation with you? The companies charged a commercial rate for the provision of those courses, right? Okay. And do they then come back looking for are they happy with the outcome of those courses?
We normally we don't care evaluate the outcome. Normally we don't.
So they are right.
After they get the course, they come back to the company and the guy for the farmer on farm field is okay. Yeah, we don't evaluate the outcome.
So you don't evaluate the course.
Not yet. Yeah.
Okay. But that's not evaluated. And do you have many? Sorry, I'm just asking all these questions. It's like an interview. I didn't mean it to be like that. It's supposed to be a discussion around the table. But do you have? Is it mainly academic institutions that offer that service, or do you have private companies? So again, in my experience in Europe, rather than go to a university, a company might go to a company like the fish. There's a group called the Fish Vet Group, who are a group of veterinarians. So they offer commercial services. So there's a commercial alternative to an academic provider of those services. Is there a similar situation?
In Vietnam, we maybe nobody to do the that.
Okay. So you've got the market sonar.
Just for the undergraduate program, now the government asked us every 2 years we had to make the survey for the graduate student.
Every 2 years?
Yeah, every 2 years, and we've had to improve the curriculum. But now we just start from last year.
Okay. So as soon as you finish one review, it's time to start another one. So you're permanently being reviewed. It's a bit like us, actually. We're a bit like that. Okay. And is that similar to the situation in Cambodia?
Yes, similar, but for myself and also my college, now you know that Cambodia, like if we say that fish now look like a very down, like before it's a very rich country in the fishery resource, but now the fishery is gone, and most of people before it's just like the fishing, but now we move to aquaculture. That is just a little bit aquaculture, and we just have one specialized in fishery. We include with aquaculture, fishing gear, and we try to extend like specialize with aquaculture, fishing gear or fishery resource management or something. But we cannot, because like the student enrollment now look like very like degree quickly, like before very popular. Yeah, and they say in the top of the number, but now it's the bottom of the number. And before, like my college, they say the vocational education, we just provide, they say, associate degree and bachelor of technology. This is the limit of the government. We cannot offer to the master or PhD. Although that my college was born in 1948. Is all this educational institution, but the government try to just stop. And like curriculum, you know that before, if we link to the industry, like which the company, and we are hard. But our curriculum, like around 10 or 15 years ago, we work with the rural area, with the poor farmers, or we produce the student become to the project manager in the field, and how to help the people in the field. Mostly we don't care much about the industry or the business. We just want to provide the people how to eat. This is what that we want to do. But now we change, and although that my colleagues try to change the curriculum, but we don't. Sometimes we don't have any fund to search which what the farmer need, what is the company need. This and that we lack. But sometimes we just guess and guess, oh, maybe like this. We don't have any statistics or data how to analyze what the real farmer or industry or company need. But we try to do, and we try to get any assistance how to help and to improve our curriculum, and one that we want our education is more the best, but we have to do it.
So why do you have to guess? Why are you unable to reach out to the industry and consult with them?
Yeah, we also work, but it's not fully that all the information is correct. We just brief how to get the information from the need of the industry or need of the farmer.
And are you confident that you guess correctly?
Not sure. Sometimes you know that we say depend on the politics too. That is a politics like that, so we follow. But we guess, like for example, before we guess that we need for like all the build people, build the student to work with the farmer, but actually is no. Now the student work with the industry, with the company, the big company, and like the small scale farmer become to move out, and some move to the other country that we are missing sometimes, that we violate is wrongly, that we cannot produce the real product to answer with the need. And now we try to refresh things again and again, how to change our student and our like grade 8 to become to like concern about IT, concern about the language or like that. But before we don't give any language, like for me, they don't teach any language, although that in English or in just, no, I want to produce just a work with the farmer. This is what that we want to do. But now we change, we want to produce our student, our graduate become to the worldwide. That this is what we want to do. But we have a limited capacity and limited assistance.
And what limits that capacity?
I think that the knowledge of some the system. Sometimes we are like before we under the friend, so we follow the friend system. and then we change to the Russian, and change to the. So we change a lot.
So it's all the fault of the French and the Russians.
Yeah,
That's
we change. Look like
that's the Montpellier conclusion that we've reached.
You're welcome.
Well, normally it's the fault of the British, so it's often our fault.
Maybe the same situation in Vietnam.
Yeah, we change. Sometimes we work with changing. It's just not work. We're changing the system and the politics and changing again and again. Because we know that the Cambodian Association, although they say sometimes they say politics should be pushed away, but this the education don't want put the education in the politics. This is what we want to again with the government. Don't put our program and our system become to the politics system. This we want to try to give the politics away. For example, like now, like when I come here, like very hard when the EU strict to the government, like our government, so we had to get a visa because like the politics. Sometimes very.
Yes, well, we can all blame the politicians for everything, can't we? Regardless of what nation they come from, we can blame them for everything.
We want to throw away, but we still touch it. Think about that.
Right. You see, this is for me personally, this is fascinating things to learn because the European Commission will say, well, how are they implementing, what we're doing in these countries? And it is an entirely different political system that people are operating with much more direct interference from a political agenda. And we don't think about that. Gosh, that's very interesting. And you're confident you'll succeed in having autonomy from
autonomy.
From
it's okay.
The
But
politicians.
now the government try to open and withdraw the hand to the university because we think that academic, and also that like maybe around 5 years ago, the government your school don't need to research, it's just education. And before they don't know because the politics sometimes they don't know the education. It's just they don't have any. Sometimes they don't have any education. It's the politics, and then say don't do any research in university in education. And because they have their own research station or something, they should be over there. But now they change the idea. So we have open and we can have a link to other university like around Asia, and also we are member of the Asian Federation. We change. Maybe in
Myanmar has the
region.
same situation. For example, to convert the agricultural land to fish pond is very difficult. The government never allow to change. Yeah, so that is one of the problem for development of the aquaculture.
Gosh. Well, that's not a real-life challenge I was expecting to hear about. That the reason you can't have an industry-responsive course is because the government forbids you from working with those companies. That's very interesting. That's
one time I was listening to there was an industry representative. We were in Thailand, and there was an industry representative of small farmers, like an association of small farmers, and he was saying that, I found this interesting because he was saying that, in the university, in research, if there is a problem, we are interested, like, to find out, for example, what's the pathogen, why that this happened. We try to understand the whole process in a lot of detail. But farmer wants a solution now.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you try to respond to the needs of the industry, our perspectives are so different. I think that's very difficult.
I think it's the same in Norway because the industry, they want the answer immediately.
Yeah.
And as a researcher, you know that you have to do the work properly.
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least. So it's a gap between what we think is enough knowledge.
Yeah.
I think the university sector, they need to prove that we our answers are correct. But for the industry, they want a fast solution. They want to implement the solution tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Without, they don't need to know why something works. They just want it to work.
Just tell me what
Yes.
to do.
So I think there's a gap there, and that gap is difficult to solve because the industry they have to earn money because they want the problem to be solved because the problem costs them so much money. They don't have time.
Yeah, they don't have time.
Or money to wait.
No.
I think that's very important, to think about when we are talking about education as well.
Yeah, because it's very hard for us to meet the expectations from the industry, because we've been trained to be thinking at it in another way.
I think there's a problem because we all know that aquaculture is coming after fishing because the number of fish is going down on aquaculture have to grow.
Yes,
grow.
yes.
Yeah. So that's for seafood. And industry has to have a value added. It's rather in biotechnology. And if you see in microalgae, for example, there's a lot of projects on microalgae. And here, industry, pharmaceutical industry are waiting for this trend. But there's a small number of projects because I think in the product is for eating. We are producing fish, we are producing oysters, but it's only for food, and it's a small quantity for biotechnology. And after it's the transformation of seafood, the industry of transformation.
So, what am I going to conclude? So, just because of the small scale of it, it makes it a weaker sector to respond to.
Actually, yes.
Okay. Yes, all right.
When we think microalgae is going to be the next oil, it's not possible. Actually, it's not possible. Petrol and oil is totally used in the world. And I don't know if you have if you know some industrial project on research. In France, there one project, only one. It's very.
You mean microalgae for biofuel?
Yeah, no. It's very small scale.
Yes, true.
So industry is not very interested actually for aquaculture.
It's more like a research basis movement, but it's not. It cannot be implemented like in large scale.
What was developed that point?
What I mean is like many research done in the industry is actually not applicable. Many researches done in the university is actually not applicable in the industry. So one of the problem, I think one of the challenge why the industry people, they don't really understand the university, how they work, is because they think that what people do in the university is like, it's just research basis. It is not, it's like maybe finding a very small compound from a plant and then you want to put it in aquaculture to be used in large scale, but not You're not thinking about the cost of production, how easy is it to produce, the cost of making it, and then aquaculture, everything is about money. So I think that's a very big gap there.
So really then this is the central problem that there is in everything, reconciling industry expectation without sacrificing academic purity and integrity of approach. That's really the thing. And how do we solve that? To make my world a happy place, as I was trying to do this morning, how do we, what ideas might there be to
I think there's too many SOPs to be followed by the university. Like for example, like what you said, if we want to do a research, it may take 3 years minimum. It may be 10 years for a simple project because there's too many SOPs to follow by the universities, whereas what the industry wants is immediate. As long as you have the idea, just do it. But in a university, we have to go through procedures after procedures, going through meetings, and then applying for grants, money.
Look for money at first.
Look for money.
Looking for money I can understand, because we all have to look for money for everything we do all the time, don't we? But who sort of sets those standard operating procedures? How are they agreed?
I think in most universities you have to go through those procedures. Like even to buy a chemical, it takes a few. I don't know, like depends on different universities. Like my university, sometimes just to get one chemical takes 2 months because you have to go through the treasurer of the university and approved by the committee and things like that.
And I think there is also the fact that in the university we get assessed, our performance gets assessed following some standards, and like publications and how much money comes in and things like that. And that if you are just following the industry, you will never meet those standards. So it's although they tell us all the time that our research has to be aligned with the industry and everything, but the reality is that at the end, if I don't publish papers, and sometimes working with the industry, the papers are not coming because working with industry sometimes is not good enough to publish a paper in a high impact journal. So you have to keep running both things at the same time to make sure that you don't.
Or they don't want us to publish the results.
Exactly, or the industry
If
put
we're
embargo.
working with the industry, they don't want to publish anything.
I remember that from my days trying to represent farms, yes, and they wouldn't want to supply data.
And
They have the problem, but then wouldn't
that's
want
maybe
the...
one of the main problems, because if you're working for industry, your career are stopping. Your academic career is stopping.
It's stopping.
Yeah.
And
Because
you are
need
looked
to
down.
publish,
You are looked down. Slightly looked down.
To have an academic career, you need to publish.
Yeah,
And then the industry projects are not so attractive.
they are not. And it's crazy for a discipline so applied as agriculture, so applied by nature. It's so applied. But even for us, this is how it works. So.
But in Norway, the industry are, I think they open more and more for publishing the results.
Yeah.
So,
in the UK as well.
Yeah, I have several projects with the industry where they are allowed us to publish the results. So it's getting better and better, but still there is limitations.
Because also they may want to test it in a particular way, which is not how you would normally do it if you were the one planning. And that has consequences then when you want to publish, because...
And maybe they want you to wait 2 to 3 years before you publish the results, because they want to implement the results first, and then
share it with others.
and share it.
Yes,
So
it
the
can derive
university-
market advantage
So the
or something.
university may come and say, so what did you do the last year?
Yeah.
And
But as a researcher, 2-3 years after the project is ended, you have a new project,
yeah, you forgot.
and then it's not so easy to pick up the old one and
It's
have
not
it published.
new. It's not new anymore.
No. It's not so interesting. So it's a lot of challenges.
Gosh. So it's like a very unhappy marriage, really, isn't it? That we both love each other, but we just can't. We just can't live together.
It's different words. As soon as I tell to some of my industry partners, do you understand the time that I'm investing here? It has consequences in my career. It's annoying, but it's the truth.
And is that understood? No, not really.
Not really.
It's
They
not.
say yes, but okay, you that's your problem.
Okay, very interesting. Right.
Yeah, I think so. It's a gap. That gap is made by the system.
It's made by the system. It's not the industry.
No, it's not the industry. It's not the university. Maybe it could be the university.
But then somebody made the system.
Yeah,
So we're back to
Breath,
who made the system?
it's the
Who are
the
we
government, no?
So we're back to the government, right? So we're back to the.
academic world.
Yeah, it's the research
It's a whole
excellence
academic
framework.
world.
It's
It's
the
worldwide.
framework of academic life.
And where was the research framework established? That was a government initiative, wasn't it?
In the UK,
France?
that was a government. That was a government. But even if the government wouldn't have done that, the academic history dictates that this is the case among colleagues.
But in Norway, if we are applying the Norwegian Research Council and get money from them, and it is a project together with the industry, and the industry are maybe paying 50% of the costs, since the government are giving money to the project, they say that the results has to be published.
Yes.
But the industry can delay the process.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Because from a funding perspective, more and more we need industry partners in the project, more and more. So I think in that respect you are right, that's better covered.
But if you have a project where it's only funded by the industry,
No,
it's
forget it.
Right. How interesting.
So you may as well think twice if you're going to do it or not. Unfortunately, you have to pay the bills. You have to have a job.
How inconvenient life and money is.
Because a company, when they want to have an experiment, they are R&D development. It's not with a university because they want to try for themselves.
Yeah.
That's what we say. They don't want to share at the
Obtain
beginning. They want
commercial
to be the
advantage.
first.
Yeah.
And so that's very difficult. And it's a problem, yes, if you have to ask for a company for pay your research. You are close to the company, so it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's the way.
I have heard from Korea or Taiwan. I don't know the policy in that country, and now they come to Cambodia to invest, and they have a company in Cambodia. But the criteria that they give must to have a agreement or contract with like university, and then they can run the business in Cambodia. I don't know that And then now it look like that the company try to link with my college or university. If we want to business with the cacao, so we want to link with the university, and then we have an agreement and sign, and then send back to the Korea, South Korea or Taiwan, and then we can have business in Cambodia. I'm not sure. So sometimes we get benefit each other, like we can. So we know about the technique, and sometimes before they say, oh, this is my pot, but now they say they want to open like that, and they said they want to help our country or something like that. They want to put some secret of the company to the public.
Very good. Right. Well, I've learned a lot. I don't quite know what I'm going to do about it. I'll just go and cry for humanity. I'll just go and sit in my room and worry.
Why there's always a discussion like that? It always put your sorrow, no? Your problems, you know.
It's well,
there are very positive things as well.
I don't know. It's like being the sacrificial lamb. You just have to sort of take all of the agony and hopefully not be crucified as a result.
But I think it's also important to mention that we need industry because we have a lot of student projects with the industry.
It's a funny balance.
To educate them, because if we have to take care of all the master students in the department, with a really long job. I think 50% of the candidates are doing their thesis in industry.
Yeah. So we ask a lot of them as well. Yeah.
It's a funny mix. It's sort of like an abusive relationship that the two sides are dependent on each other, but just can't
It's like
function.
an old marriage.
That's very cynical. What do you mean an old? It doesn't have to be like that. Old marriages can lead to happiness, and it doesn't have to lead to. I'm glad I'm not married to you. It can also go horribly wrong, but right, I've got to try and type up some notes. Gosh, how very interesting. How very interesting. And I'm going to try and not type up it's all the French's fault as my conclusion. So, what do we have? We've got fundamental. I can't even type. Fundamental incompatibility.
We deserve that.
I know, I think we all need to have a glass of wine. It's like a wake now. We need to have for the love that might have been, we have to sit there. Incompatibility of the academic and capital systems was one, but mutual dependence of the two sectors. We had your example of political interference. Part of governments not allowing.
Would you understand the notes?
It's just, when I was a young boy at prep school,
Yesterday.
The charm of the French, don't we love it? When I was a young boy, I got a prize for handwriting in my class because I had beautiful handwriting. What went wrong? What happened to me?
You get educated.
I got other prizes as well, not just for handwriting, but I did get other prizes. Nothing sporting, but I did get. We have to move. I've not even written my notes up.
You're sitting here. No, you finish. Finish.
No, it's okay. No, it's fine. It's fine. Which way do I go? Thank you very much. I've learned a lot actually. As I say, I'm going to go and despair about all of that. But it's not. Yes, that's my watch.
Okay, so what I maybe think would be useful for taking on this question is if I just tell you what the other table talked about, and then maybe see how you can take it further forward into more specific proposals and how they could be developed. So we started off by thinking about anybody who had experience of education in a different cultural context, so particularly anybody from Asia who's studied in Europe, or anybody from Europe who's studied in Asia, and what were the kind of experiences they had and what were the main differences that they found in that, in moving from one place to the other. And the things that came out from the Asian side were that one of the biggest differences was that in Europe people are very much encouraged to ask questions, and people do ask questions all the time. They're much more questioning, whereas Asian education students tend to sort of sit back and just accept whatever is taught. This is the expertise, where we just accept it. So that questioning culture was something which they felt was a bit new to them, and which they actually felt was very useful. And from the European side, there was this observation that Asian students tended to have a much better work ethic. They're much more diligent and much more energetic in their way that they studied. But also they were more, in some ways, more practically oriented. How do we put this into practice? They were less theoretical in a sense, and abstracting things all the time, more practical and wanting to apply it. And on the kind of, if you take the more practical aspects of aquaculture, again, Asians were more ready to go out into the field and do field work and were kind of more comfortable at that level, whereas Western education tends to focus very much more on the laboratory and detailed laboratory skills. So people felt that they got a stronger sort of lab culture and experimental culture in the teaching in Europe, whereas you got much more of a kind of practical field understanding in the education systems in Asia. So we came up with this, there's good reasons for crossover and collaboration between Europe and Asia. People could get a lot from it, and then equally we were saying, people's outlook has broadened out, their understanding is broadened. Is there a value to people with that kind of experience by industry? Are those people a value to industry? Is there a role for them in industry? Are industry demanding that kind of graduate with an international outlook and experience? And the feeling there was that yes, in many ways there are, and especially in the supply sector, the sort of pharmaceuticals, the feeds, all the sort of support sector, sales into aquaculture, and in the marketing, marketing end of things, maybe slightly less so in the actual production sector. But nevertheless, in many countries there's a lot of mobility of workers. So actually just the fact that you may be in Europe, but you might be dealing with Asian workers, or whatever, you might be dealing with cross-cultural issues in the workplace anyway. So there's a lot of value to be found in encouraging this internationalisation of education. So we kind of spent some time establishing that, and I guess to move this on, I'm kind of suggesting we look at that. So we then said, okay, what's the basic mechanisms we can use to encourage this kind of international collaboration? We can see that at a very basic level, governments will fund their students to go out to different countries, especially those that feel that they'll get most value from that. And there's a certain number of international schemes that particularly support it. So within Europe there's this Erasmus mobility funding, which tends to fund people coming into Europe and for crossovers within Europe, but doesn't really fund people to go from Europe to Asia, for instance, or to North America or anything else. It's very focused in on Europe. There's another example of a Japanese scheme which is quite valued by a lot of organisations in Asia, where the Japanese are funding students to go to Japan for 6 weeks courses, and again that's a very good experience for students there. So there are some schemes around, and we were then saying, okay, are there other ways in which we could develop collaborations and sharing, which could be proposed and encouraged from the EURASTiP project. So, part of what we want to do in this whole project is kind of look at ways in which we could further strengthen education both in Asia and in Europe, and strengthen the collaboration between them. So are there any new mechanisms, or are there mechanisms which we've seen working which we think could be promoted more widely? So we had we talked a bit about the main barriers. So obviously we had funding as the major problem, and there's never enough money. But there's also institutional structures. The institutional priorities don't necessarily coincide with the academic, individual academic departments' priorities. There's the academic timetables, the fact that we start academic years at different times. We don't have big holidays at the same time, so it's difficult sometimes to have exchange schemes that work over a suitable period of time for both parties. There's a whole issue of academic credits and frameworks and things, and how they can be matched with each other between different institutions. We spoke a bit about opportunities for online blended learning and collaboration that way, and a little bit about opportunities for student-to-student interactions through social media, through again through online methods particularly, but maybe through meetings and that kind of thing. So that was where the last group kind of ended up. Kind of a lot of themes and ideas. What we tried to not be good to sort of move on to, or try and develop a little bit further here with a bit more detail, which answers this question. So how can we develop more concrete proposals and plans for collaboration that respond to these industry needs and deliver best employees in the aquaculture global sector? So maybe you've got discussion which you had in the last session which we can bring over and develop into more concrete proposals.
One question that I had, but it may be a little bit offline, but hopefully not too much, is, in the same way that we have Erasmus program in the EU, does something similar exist in Asia, between Asian countries, in a way that undergraduate students go to another country and maybe stay there for a year, but that's sort of recognized within their degrees? Is that scheme exist?
You mean ready? Something?
Yeah.
Not equal, it's it's going to exchange the student between, for example, Vietnamese to the other country.
Yeah.
Not the government actually is the same, maybe the same in Cambodia. The government control everything. the university cannot control themselves. So if you want to change, students had keep the balance to credit or something. It's our managing.
It's my impression there's a number of bilateral schemes, isn't there? Because you do.
Okay.
just looking at Facebook, sometimes there's students that go from Vietnam to Thailand or something, and there is sort of specific exchanges, but I guess that they are funded by Vietnamese government or by the Thai government. What about Malaysia? Have you got experience in Malaysia?
I have friends that have exchange programs, but it's between the two universities. For example, like a local university in Malaysia and then a local university in Thailand.
Okay.
So the Malaysia student go to Thailand, but it's fully funded by the Thailand university.
Okay.
But when she graduates, she get a dual degree.
Double degree.
Yeah.
Double degree.
Double degree, which is really good.
Really good.
But it's only between the two universities. It can also, there are many other different universities, not only that, but it's between like one-to-one university.
Yeah.
So you can get like a dual degree or dual PhD, which is very good.
Okay. And to bring you to the EU, I know that the EU is going to be putting a lot of money into Myanmar and into Cambodia in the next few years. If there's anything already going, then tell me. If there's not anything happening at the moment, what kind of programs and opportunities would you like to see being funded by those programs?
For example, Erasmus student exchange program for Myanmar students, because of the English language proficiency, there is a limit, so it's difficult for Myanmar students to go abroad. Yeah, that is one problem. And sometimes we have a bilateral collaboration, for example, between Japan and Myanmar. For example, if Myanmar student go to Japan, the Japanese government provide the money for the Myanmar student. If Japanese student come to Myanmar, but we can't provide everything, so it's one of the problems for us.
Yeah,
in Vietnam is also the same, especially for my university. The students normally come from the rural area, so they had no enough the English skill, English proficiency, so they cannot get go abroad or study. And also the same problem for the exchange student. When my university come to Japan or something other country, they support cover everything, but when they come they cannot. So they problem. When they sign MOU, we also say the side student they pay everything, but we cannot.
I think like we have a tool like in my college, like we have a like exchange program. So we send to the like China, and China send to us, and so that when they come, they take everything, take response everything from China, and also when we send to China, and also like we have an internship from Canada that we say, but Canada we have a project, and that project, so when they live in Cambodia, so they support from the Canadian International Development Agency, and when Cambodia to Canada, so they support. So but with each university we don't pay, but we have a project to pay for support the program. Yeah. And some like we are like in Thailand and Cambodia, and so we can change. I think this, although that we are poor, I think the Cambodian will be poorer than Vietnamese, but we can some like that. Yeah. And in our government, we always say that the education is the first priority, but the money not the first. Every time that a politician always say that the education, especially for agriculture and aquaculture and something like that, is the first, but the money is the last one. So and then we try to find some resource, some company or some charity, and then we support to our program that we can. And sometimes we say, oh, it cannot happen, but after we ask some company or some it happened for exchange program, and also EU that we heard that we maybe around more than 100 million euro for the Cambodia, but I'm not sure that the politics look like it's more constrained about the donation to Cambodia. And one thing that I think the education is very important, and mostly that EU support to the fishery administration not support to the university or education, and then look like different from the university and also from the government, but the EU support to the government but not support to education, and we look like try to like away from the education and also from the real like the government, because like it is the government. Even say the funding should be I think concern focus with the education, and also there are like my college mostly there are poor students from remote area from the border, and they don't look like they don't have money. And some we also have like proposed to EU like one time, and they say the agreement like they say they will support to our college like around. And then next time they say Cambodia become to not poorest country anymore, so they move out. So and they give a like small scholarship to the poor people, like for example like 60 per month, but they can survive for that from the poor people. And this is
From an EURASTiP perspective, that you had these mobility calls open, which is the one that is it attracted a lot of people applying, and which sort of exchanges are being most common? No?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that because I'm not involved with it, but we should try
okay.
If Mieke or Miike's around, probably when you had David, didn't you? So Mieke will know.
You know, one thing that one more that we get like support from the like Japanese donation in small amount of the money, that will be like just $300 for our students from exchange program. And so it just, and then the student can be supplement for also that is the and that we can operate.
So we've seen that, and there are quite a few ways in which exchange and mobility is funded by individual countries on a piecemeal basis. I suspect China presumably is paying. China is funding as well the students that go to China, particularly, I guess.
And now it's like Cambodia, we have a change now. Like the government, the Chinese government try to pull the hand to the Cambodian a lot. So, but a lot of people they don't like to do that. We want to have a balance just in China. We have a lot of bad experience with Chinese government already, so we try to. But the government we don't know it.
So it's the political interest. So, to what do you think that industry is in any way involved in setting the priorities for this government funding for mobility? Is this funding for mobility being driven by the industry, saying, to the governments, look, we need more students with this kind of background, with this kind of training, or is it governments being advised by academic institutions that it's a good idea to have more international exchanges? What's driving? What role is there at the moment for industry, and is there scope for greater involvement of industry in driving those kind of mobility programs? Any ideas on that?
I'm not sure about that, but it's just a suggestion. So far we used to hear about student mobility program, but now the focus here is how are we going to create a course that can benefit the industry So it involves the educator. So instead of sending students for mobility program, we should also send educators for mobility program. Put them in farms to experience hands-on. I mean, go back to the ground to see how the farm actually works and understand more. So because the educators are there, they would have a better understanding. Compared to students, it would be totally different. And then when the educators, perhaps like for lecturers, maybe young lecturers, every year you should send them, they should be sent to farms, local farms, for maybe 2 weeks or 1 month, okay, and then every year, and then they can come back to the university and then develop this course, because through those kind of experience and hands-on exposure and understanding at the farm, I think it could be done to improve the course. Because if you send students, they go, they learn, but the industry don't really benefit from them, because students are there to learn instead of, if educators, they can also share their experience, like share their knowledge.
Another one is to make the teachers training from foreign expertise to our country, come to our country. So in short time, many people, educators can learn from them. So it's also one of the beneficial way for
Do you think that I'm just wondering about, so within industry, do you think that they would find it easy to invite in tutors from colleges? Would they want to do it? Would they need incentivising to do it? Would they need to be given some incentives to do that? What do you think their attitude will be?
I experience with the Norwegian industry is that I don't think they have so much time to offer to have lecturers going facilities for a couple of weeks every year. They are quite busy. I'm not sure, but maybe not every year, but if a lecturer has to be in the industry maybe every 4th or 5th year, that could be possible, but not every year. That would be too much.
Yeah. Does it depend on the type of company and things? Because the Norwegian is at one end of the scale, the kind of big corporate companies with relatively few people, but a lot of investment, whereas a lot of small smallholder farms particularly are very different. Maybe they would welcome people in more. What do you think?
But from a time perspective, can these educators spend that time? Can they?
I think that's probably a matter of institutional priorities, isn't it? How much they prioritise the staff getting that experience, because they're having to pay the staff and they're not getting anything productive at that moment in time, but maybe they would be more productive and more useful in the long run.
I can tell you that in France, when you are in an engineer school, at the end of the first year, you have 1 month in a company. At the end of the second year, you have 2 months, and at the end of the third year, it's 6 months. And that's the possibility to see 3 companies, and the best way is at the end of your 6 months to be engaged in the company. So that the aim of this schedule is to have a job at the end of your 3 years of school. It's possible.
Our
It's a system.
Our students as well have an internship in the industry for 5 months in their second year. I think it's quite. They learn a lot from the industry. And of course, it depends on what kind of industry, but I think the students like that part of the education.
In Vietnam, total 3 years, only 2 months to go to the industry to get the real life experience. So this is one of the problem.
But it's always a fight with the industry to place all the students, because we have approximately 50 students every year who have an internship, and it's not so easy to find a good partner for them. That might be difficult.
Yeah, I can see that as being important. Do you think, going back to your idea of the teachers going out into the industry, is there a way in which that could be kind of accredited, or the lecturer gets some recognition for having done that? Because if a lecturer goes and does some other academic course or something, they get a certificate and it's something they put on their CV, whereas if they go for to work at a company for 2 weeks, it may not seem to carry quite the same certified sort of experience. I wonder if there's any way in which that could be given more value, say, in a sense, by some kind of certification system. Whether the hosting of it would be the responsibility of the company to fund if there's financial implications, or whether that would be something that would be funded by the academic organisation.
For my college, we have a 4-year program, and in second year we have a internship with the industry or farm. So this we give like a 4 credit for just practical, and in 4th year we have 6 months for thesis, and also that they work but with the academic and how they're finding the problem or something that we have got some with the research. But in the second year we don't say just research, just practice how to do it.
Yeah, so
in the last we have like 8 credit for that. They say 1 credit we have around at least like 45 hours. 45 hours. This at least. In some mostly that is 64. It's the government like 45 hours. So if you do that like that, you get not just in the company but private sector or VC or something.
That's for students.
Yes,
yeah.
students. Yeah.
So what's quite interesting is that clearly in your system, and maybe a little bit in the Norwegian system as well, you are valuing the work experience as being part of the whole education package, and it's being sort of taken into account in the final qualification. So to get this final qualification, you also have to have this practical industry experience. Whereas, say, the UK system tends to be rather, you have this academic experience, and that's certified. If you want to do industry experience, that's separate, and it's not part of the overall qualification to have done that kind of experience. In some courses it is, but in other courses maybe not so given so much weight culturally. So maybe that's something some of us in Europe could learn from Asian practice as well. So what about got those funny things? What do you think that there is any value in the sharing of materials and teaching resources between Europe and Asia? Is there a role for that? How could you see that working?
I don't understand.
Share the material.
I suppose at the moment, each organisation pulls together its own teaching materials and delivers them to its students. And there's fairly the sort of the ways in which material gets shared is probably the fact that a student goes to one institution to learn and gets material there, and then when they become a teacher they make use of that next institution that they're teaching at. And of course there's sort of things on the internet which anybody can use, but that process means that whatever gets used may well be out of date. So are there ways of more proactively sharing resources particularly between Europe and Asia in this context? If you develop a particular case study, for instance, which has got materials around an activity, it's got context information about a farming system or about a value chain or something, and you develop that for your course, is there a mechanism or a desire that could also be made available to other educational institutions for adaptation and use in that context? So, would it be if Norway have developed a very good case study around salmon farming system and materials, some video materials, some exercises for students, study resources, would that be useful to Asian educators to say, let's look at some different systems here and what we can learn from them? If you did it in Myanmar, for instance, would it be useful to Norwegian or British educators to say, look, this is happening in Myanmar, this is the material that we've got from there? What do you think of that? And is it viable?
In the project that we are involved, I think one of the ideas is that is not sharing the current programs or the current teaching materials, but those that are being developed, that there is a sharing, that they are going to be shared between the South Asian partners. I always had this question whether, for example, you develop teaching materials for your university and whether you are allowed to share them with other organizations. One thing is like if that's part of the project and it's a new program, but if, I would think that would be, could that be a problem? Because that university has invested, that money and that for you to develop those. So I wondered about that. But in that project, the Southeast Asian partners, they will be sharing the courses the new courses they are developing. But I think, as you say, case studies, things like that would be very useful. But it's just
would as educators, would you make use of them?
I think especially case studies, no, because there might be some components which are applicable to you and others not, but they are both interesting.
How much is language a barrier? So you were mentioning that language is a big barrier, so presumably that's true of materials as well. If all the materials were produced in English, that would still be hard for you to use.
But usually we learn from the internet, like YouTube, and also as much as we can. Yeah. So we learn a lot from the internet.
The other one maybe the resources. We have enough the facility, equipment for get your around something like that. Now in Vietnam now many universities want to use curriculum from developed country, but then when they bring back Vietnam, they can teach almost the same because different. We have to know enough equipment or know enough the facility. Yeah, so we cannot apply onward.
Just when you talk about the internet and things, I'm just thinking something like YouTube. There's so many different things on YouTube. I don't know, but has anybody looked to see whether there are things on laboratory procedures or experimental procedures or use of certain types of analytical equipment? Is that there? Is that one of the things that people use?
Exactly. Mostly it's just practice in English and how to improve, right? But I think
in a video conference, it's difficult to find a good video conference like it.
Okay.
To get to test the web learning, it's difficult.
You know,
The
like
network not so good.
my colleague try to develop like that, but you know we don't have any experience how to develop, and sometimes we send because the government try to say like to buy something like through the procurement, but the procurement they don't know anything and buy wrongly, so we waste a lot of money like that. But this like you say the EU rule that they must have procurement. But sometimes you know that it's generally it's okay, but with research and technical procurement cannot do. I think it cannot. Like wrong, always wrong. When I have made like 3 or 4 projects, when we try with procurement, that doesn't work like that. They always some part, you know, this with all, and then they buy something, and we cannot match each other. And I think like if we try to augment with research, and some research we cannot give like specification to the other, because it's like just research, it's just the education is already not exactly that this equipment right or wrong, because we try to test again. Sometimes you know we buy like 10 times, but it just answer like together just one time, like technical. But if you have expert from and full set, maybe it's okay. But we need to learn. Like I get from China, you know, they say full set, but the company cannot read the Chinese language, so we try to. But we need to train before starting.
So that's more kind of because of the piecemeal way in which these things work. Yeah, it's interesting. The little bit on the answer, the sharing of material, is that if you've got a funded project like your project, then the EU is paying for the development of material very often, and then it is made available to the partners without any kind of problems. If you develop it only with your own organisation's resources, that organisation may well decide that it is its own property and it may not want to share it, and that's very common. Some institutions are going down the route of saying we believe in the value of open educational resources which have got Creative Commons license, so it's share-alike kind of licensing, because means we can have a much bigger pool of resources that we can use, but we also understand that we contribute to that pool as well. So that's a big debate that's going on within higher education generally. I think that it tends to be favoured more by the academics than by or some academics than by some of the managers, I think, at the moment. But there's certain institutions that have brought into it in a big way. So some of the US institutions have said, okay, we'll make all of our learning materials open educational resources. So it's still a very active debate, I think, on that one. What about student-generated materials? We talked about the fact that teachers might be generating resources, but what about student-generated materials? Is that a value? Is that something which you could see as being more widely shared?
I never thought about that.
I think we can use the material. It's like an idea input from the students, but you need to have supervisors to go through it and filter it, and then you choose what's the best.
It needs a quality check.
Yes, quality check.
Before you can use it.
Yeah, but I think it's a good input, idea input from the students.
And of course, thesis and such things like that is open.
Yeah.
So it's searchable on the internet. So
Yeah, certainly a PhD level.
master thesis and bachelor thesis as well is open, so they get published.
Yes, true. Some countries are, ours aren't, I think.
If there are projects in cooperation with the industry can lock the project for 3 years, or lock the thesis for 3 years. But after 3 years, it's open and it's free for everyone.
Okay, so we should try and get a few things on paper before we get So we took key things that we talked about then. Looking at first of all, the value of Eurasia. So we, of course, gave us a starting point that there is this value to some industry in general. Is there any particular point you want to record on that? Just the value? Or just take that as a starting point? So as the industry itself would see it in terms of competitive advantage, does it help to make them more? Does it help them more competitive within their business? So if their business model is international, then it probably helps them to be more competitive, to have people that understand the international context and can contribute to it. So then we talked a bit about 5 minutes ago. Okay, so enhancing linkages. So we had support for mobility. And then we had need for teachers.
Yes.
So we need more activity in that area, or at least we felt that was something that should be pushed. Whether that could be accredited or recognised. Mechanisms for enhanced sharing.
Yeah.
So not only students from a master course in aquaculture, that's also water specialists.
We talked about
engineers. So graduates, and this is important. I never thought about thinking about this before I did here, but this is important so that you should not think about one. I don't know what your opinion is, but about one graduate from one course, one campus course, but if that graduates from different courses, engineer,
in these kind of ideas, if we were making recommendations then for EU, for instance, EU are funding this project, what would we ask them to support? What would you want them to put their, what would you most want them to put their money in?
So you need a good engineer, maybe if you have like huge facilities, different facilities, because if those machines don't work anymore, the students from the master course, they can speak to solve things. Does it make sense? Do you understand? Yes, it's
more practical because yeah, you find the same work in Norway, that is the same company, even the same.
I suppose we're trying to capture your fact that there's many different funding schemes, all with their own priorities and things, or slightly different agendas that never quite work together. In terms of things that you would like to see going forward, you could say, okay, I want the EU to put some money on the table to enhance educational opportunities and enhance educational cooperation. What mechanisms would you suggest that they put that money into? How would they spend that money?
We are under network, so can we develop the policy, like a minimum requirement of the university together? We put some budget activity how to say minimum is not maximum. How we can become to network in the among the EU and Asian countries. Look like that. Quality and when we can exchange, you know that we have a partnership. You know, we have agreement partnership with the Thai, but between Cambodian and Thai, and then Thai said do not accept with all the university from Cambodia, but we have signed MOU already. But how we can get
more structure?
Through the EU shadow.
Is that to do with recognition of qualification?
Yes.
Recognition of learning?
It's very difficult because in Europe, between different countries, it's the same text, but it's not the same effect on the country. So I think it's
Very, very, very long time. Okay. And also then in Asian we have the old university, like
ASEAN University Network.
Yes.
So it could be promoting and funding. So is this networks of universities or networks of academic interest? Yeah. So yeah. Anything else you want to add into that?
We can say the sunbed program. So we want to in the other country and all that. And like for example, like EU, they have like a 3-year program, but if they take in Cambodia like 1 year, and then we can go to other countries.
Yeah, so it's a split programs.
So to have the same, not exactly the same level, but to adjust the level.
Adjust the level. Although there is a sometimes that Cambodian say the education is not meet requirement.
Yeah.
So how we can like bridging the student 1 year over there, and we can support like expert and also the program, and then after the qualify we can send actually graduate. Yeah.
Okay, I think we've probably reached our thing, so thank you very much. A few minutes break.
Thank you.
I'm not willing to kick you out, but I'm doing it. It's too early. Work. Sleep, I said. It's too early.
Yeah, you know
So we stay awake and we work hard on best practice examples. So I need from you as much examples as possible, but I might wait till everybody's here. I'll wait. Who's missing there?
He goes to the toilet.
We'll wait 1 second. Thank you. Oh, I know, we're waiting for the French guy.
Yeah.
Voila, let's go ahead. So, for this group, this is your last group. I hope you're very happy. The last one, I can really imagine. We're dealing with the development and delivering aquaculture courses in direct response to industry demands. So aquaculture courses, industry demand. And what I need is best practice examples from you all. So what I would suggest is that we start with a roundtable tour, and that you tell me about how you deal with it in your country, in your institution, and what you learned from the internet, some good ideas, some things that work or don't work, which you have tried, and maybe then you say you stopped with it because it did not work. So to respond to the industry needs in your aquaculture related courses. Can you start with you? come too? Okay, go ahead.
Not a bad practice, just my sample from my university. For my university, we for the third year student, we send them to the industry for example the nursery farm or industry culture farm, and they take 2 months.
2 months, so kind of internship then?
Yeah, in the look like the internship, and they do everything the company asked them. Yeah, and then stay there and do everything. Yeah, yeah. Only 2 months for maybe 3 years and a half. Study in the
it's the third year that they're doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
And what does the industry say? Is 2 months enough? Should it be longer? Are they happy with the kind of skills the students come?
It depends on the student, not on what the happy. Some of them want to know about the aquaculture real life. Yeah, they do so much. But the other one just want to finish the intensity course. They want to come back to university. It's a problem.
But after 3 years, you evaluated something positive?
Yeah. After the course, we asked the company fill the evaluating sheet, but normally even the student not so good, but the company always check the good. So we don't know how
they're too polite.
because normally the company is our alumni, so they want to
they don't want to offend you.
Negative. Yeah, so that's the problem. Yeah, so we cannot know actually the student do in the farm. Yeah. And the other one, as I said, Europe had that many 5 or 6 months for the internship, but only Vietnam, for my university, only 2 months. Yeah. The other university had 4 or 5 months, but my university only 2 months. Also a problem.
And 2 months is too short? Would it be better 5 months?
Maybe, for aquaculture field, our 2 months only take for the nursery, only finish 1 circle. For the rollout culture, that maybe 6 or even 8 months. So if only 2 months, we cannot learn anything.
Yeah, then don't see even one whole circle.
Yeah, whole cycle, rotation cycle. Yeah.
Okay, we will move on. If you think when we are through, think about other stuff, we get back to you. Yeah, next.
Yes, since we're not having any courses directly related to the aquaculture industry, this is a difficult question to answer. But some of our students have their internship in the aquaculture sector. And they have 5 months in the industry, and during those months we have a discussion with there is a supervisor in the industry, and it's a supervisor at the university, and they are discussing what kind of problems which is relevant, both from the industrial side and from the university side. And we try to have a good discussion about what is important for the students to learn during the internship. So, and in the end, they make a report from their internship. So I think it's a good way to teach them and to cooperate with the industry, and it's regarding employability. It's the students learn a lot from that internship.
So if I recall it right, it's not only good for the student, it's also good for the university, because that way you have a close contact with the industry and you learn from each other.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good conclusion.
Good.
So in my university this year they have reactivated. I think that's something they were doing a few years back, but then they sort of stopped, and now this year they started again. And is that they run a short course that it's aimed to the industry to do with fish welfare. And I think that was because there was a demand from the industry to cover more specifically the topic of welfare. And that is quite a short course. It's like, I think it's 2 or 3 days.
Months? 2 or 3 months?
No, days.
Days.
Days, yeah, because this is for the industry. It's not mainly for our industry. And then they have, they have lectures, and they have some practical work in the afternoon with that specific topic.
But it's a short course within your aquaculture course, or for people from outside that can come and study? Oh.
Yeah. And within the courses, we don't have internships, but I mentioned that before, that for our master programs there is an organisation that is called the Scottish Aquaculture Innovation Centre. Mm-hmm. And the Innovation Centre every year funds a number of studentships, like I can't remember, it's maybe around 12, something like that. And the only condition attached to the studentship is that the research projects have to be covering one of the challenges that the industry highlighted. So there is 4 priorities that the industry in Scotland has highlighted as main challenges. So the project has to be directly aligned to one of these challenges. And I think that's working quite well.
And what the studentship, it's some kind of research, or? So
the studentship is that they get covered the fees for the MSc program. So
it's an allowance.
Yeah. So they don't pay any fees. The students don't pay any fees for the master. So that's paid by that organization.
But then their thesis topic needs to cover a challenge from the industry.
Yeah. And then when they do the presentations at the end, then they invite the industry partners to see the projects that have been, especially the ones that have been funded through this.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah. In Myanmar, sometimes the industry asks to the university to give the lecture for short time period, about 1 week. And for master students, we have to do research for 6 months. So in Myanmar, we have to do only 6 months for master student research. For research, they have time only 6 months. So at the time, if the industry asks for the student, they support money for that student, and the student can collaborate with that industry for 6 months, only for 6 months. And now we are developing the curriculum for the bachelor course. So first we discuss with all the stakeholders, including fishery, Department of Fishery, and also the fish farmers and other organizations. And then we listen what they need for their industry. So we include those things in our curriculum.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not a lecturer, I'm still a student, so I can only give my view from a student's
very important
perspective. I think during my university days, what I learned most was through industrial training. But since I only have one industrial training at the end of the program, I I think it is not sufficient, because when we only go to one farm, sometimes it depends on your luck whether you get a big farm or a small farm, and in Asia most farms are actually small. So what we learn is very limited, and perhaps I think as a student we need to go to at least 3 farms to gain more experience and understand the situation. So 1 farm is not enough to me. Yeah.
Thank you.
We are at the beginning of the beginning because of a course, because we have to try experiments to put bread into pellets for fish nutriments. So, and we are working with a company here in south of France, and we thought that it's possible to have one week or 2 weeks course after this test, specifically on nutrition, fish nutrition.
But that's a course. So you have the. I'm not following completely.
Yeah. We have a test. We are making our pellets.
Yeah.
So we want to improve this test to show to students the level of nutrition, of protein nutrition, and for fish, and the possibility to I don't know to have bread protein rather soja or something like that. So that's the aim of this course. Yeah?
Yes. And
but it's the beginning. For us, it's the beginning.
So it's a new course that you're gonna start.
Yeah.
And it's most probably started up the idea from the industry needs of lowering the protein, the animal protein. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Like my college, because we call college that did not change to university, but actually we provide just bachelor degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the firstly that we have bachelor degree, like from the previous time we have a 5-year program, yeah. And then after graduate, like 2 years more for the practice. Yeah, so like totally like 7 years. This we say the Bachelor of Technology. But when we see a return to the now, that although that in around in Cambodia, like we change, not change, like we come to the 4-year program, but we like look like it's 7-year program. And then we discuss and cut down, because like after we said, although that we say 5 years, and if you don't go to practice in the real specialized, and like for fishery, if you don't go to aquaculture, and then if you go to work outside from the field, the diploma is cancelled like that. Before, like we have a criteria like that. But when we look down, look around the world, it's become to nothing. And then we try to cut our program like a 4-year program, and we have like they say 1 semester, like but actually like fully 6 months. But in our system, it's just 4 and 5 months, 4 to 5 months like that. This that they say the
4 to 5 months.
No, 4 to 5 months for the thesis.
Of the thesis.
Yeah, thesis. Yeah. And then you know that we say in the first year, because our country we have coastal zone and also the Mekong River zone and upland zone. So we have 3 visits. Each one visit we have 1 week. So one we send the student how to know the aquatic resources around the coastal zone, and also maybe in the second year we send the student to go around the Bassett, maybe you know the big lake and a lot of different ecosystem. And other we send students to visit around the Mekong River and look upland, and the water very strong and different diversity. So we try to understand just visit and lead by the local authority and our lecturer.
And what do they do there? They visit farms? They study the ecosystem? Or what
not natural. This is what we want to know, that our students know about the nature, how we can.
So the ecosystem, ecology.
And also what interact between the ecosystem and people. This is that we want to know. And in second year, we send the student to practice in the farm. Yeah, some that they say the industry with aquaculture, and some with the harvesting or some processing.
Internship? No.
Yeah, internship. Yeah, internship, it says 3 month program.
3 months.
3 months. Yeah, and they don't research, but it's just a practice.
Just to work on the farm basis. And this 3 months, what do the farmers say? Is it enough? Or do they also want it to be longer?
Yeah, mostly the farm always need longer, but they say because the period is a limit. And also if we compare to other university, we have 4 hours per day, but our college 8 hours per day. Look so big, and the credit is more. So, but we try to cut. Yeah, and also we send we give some assessment or assignment to the student to do a practice, how to find, for example, a hatchery, and then how we can take which hatchery system and do and reel and record to the to what are the hatchery system, and this that they work and they finding by personally to the private sector or hatchery or research farm or something like that.
But that is different. It's an assignment they get with a certain problem, and then they have to go. No.
Yeah, they have to go. It's like a credit. They have to go.
But that's different from the internship, huh?
I see, it's like a credit, so they must to go. At least that they push them how to communicate by themselves. If they don't, they push it. It's not elective or not the optional. This is the main they must to do that. And sometimes that our lecturer always complain our system. They say, "Oh, the university not strict like your university, and the number of students down. Why you don't open?" But some they say still keep and conservation what we have now. This yeah, and also that in 4 years that I said we have a 6 month program, and mostly now I think that because fishery the number of fishery is down, but after they graduate, nothing remain. All the company ask them to
the ones that graduate have a job.
Have a job. Sometimes they in 4 years, and they send to the company, but they don't come back. They don't also still get in, not necessary, but my job is necessary. So
they don't get back to
defend. Sometimes because they have.
So they don't have the degree.
The degree, but the company they accept that they have a capacity to do it. Yeah, sometimes, but it's a small amount. The student that say because the student.
It's too much influence from the industry.
And sometimes when we interview from the private sector or a company, they say, "What are the certificate I say that they don't need, but what they need, they real practice and what they do. They don't care about the diploma or master or bachelor or associate degree, but what we need, they can practice, they can do, they can follow the guide that the company give them. They don't care. That is what the company they answer back like that.
Okay, thank you. I think we also already have some nice examples. So, getting inspired by the other ones. Anybody wants to add something?
And sometimes my colleagues say, no, in UK just 3 months. 3-year program for bachelor, but you keep it long. I say because a 3-year program, they're smart. But we cannot get the best student from the high school. It's just the last student from the high school. So we try to do again and again. Sometimes I explain that, you know, that a scholarship to UK or US, so the best student around the Cambodia, at least like 1 year, just 2 or 3. But now in my college, if we say the recruitment, all university, they pass and we start to select the West.
The best.
Not the best, the West.
Okay.
So try we do teach again and again because we
step by step.
Yeah. Although they say not smart enough like the smart, but they can do it. This is what we want to do because all of them from the province or the rural area. You know, the city they don't want to study in agriculture or aquaculture. It couldn't make law and
Okay, I get it. Thank you. So, any more examples that you were thinking about besides the one that we had here? Nobody wants to add, then we stop and we finish.
Maybe my college, because like we under the vocational education, so we more focus with the practical instead. We have a different system between the other university and my college and try to keep like that.
But maybe let's get back like how it was with you. You said that it used to be 5 years and then 2 years of practice. Was it then 2 years of practice in the same company or in different?
Different. Depend on they selected. But now we change.
But all the others want to go back to this.
We change.
It's long, 7 years is long, but
we try argument. Sometimes we say because like the number the degree because you are more strict and more longer, and then we try to
cut it down.
Cut down argument with but my like leadership mostly they want to keep. Although they say now 5 years, like 4 years like that, we say not enough. You know, like if we say we can select the best student around this year, maybe it's okay. We cannot because the agriculture.
And now you have to get some basic education first before you can start. Okay, good. Let's go to the next one. How do we establish industry contacts? Any ideas on that? How do you do that? So it's a good thing to work with the industry, but how do your institutes establish the contacts with them? Is it easy to get into contact with the industry? What are the obstacles along the way? Let's start with this one. What's your experience? Like Nonglam University, you have good contact with industry, yeah? Yeah. How do you do that? Do they contact you? Do you take the first step?
Normally, as I say, normally the leader of the company are alumni of Nonglam University. So when we want to send the student to their company, they ask them each year we want how many students will come their company.
So it's the company that asks for the students?
Yeah. And with some company will ask, this year I need 5 or 6 or even 10 students. So we send 10 students to them.
To the one same company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
and then do you
year,
get feedback in what they are missing in the education of these students afterwards?
Not so much.
They're also too polite.
They don't have the response how the students do it.
So that's also an issue.
Every year we had about 200 3-year students had to send to the farm, very big one. Yeah.
So I'm writing down, it's easy for Vietnam to get contact with the industry, but it's difficult to get an honest feedback. Okay, it's another.
We have many companies after the student, but we don't, because it's when the company give their requirement, we when we call ask students come together and choose which day they want to come, because the many companies will do the child fit culture, child fit feeding, something like that. So many days, some people like some students like the child fit, some people like the trim, something like that. So they choose the company, and they also hear about the last student say about the company.
It was good there, good there.
The company that pay the money, or the company can cover the food or something like that.
Yes,
so
yes,
they will join that company.
Okay. What about?
Yes, we use the network of examinated students who are working in the industry.
You have a network.
Yes, a network. We try to keep the contact with the...
So of alumni then, huh?
Yeah. And we meet them at conferences and exhibitions.
And try to keep on with the contact, and that way you get the...
We also have a Facebook page for the examinated students, just to have contact. We can publish different
Tell me a bit.
we can publish if there are any cases that they want some topics for new project and everything. But in addition, we have a lecturer who is responsible for the internship part, which are working maybe 45 to 50% of the position is just to have the contact with the industry and organize the internship. So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting for the alumni network. Good. Thank you. Maya.
I think that there are a lot of mechanisms for us to interact with the industry. The department, well, the department always, well, not always, but in some industry events, they go there actively and they have stands and they present. Some of the, for example, the short courses that we offer, or the masters, or for example, case studies of collaboration between industry that have worked very well. So our department is very active in maintaining industry contacts. I think for new staff starting, it's a little bit more challenging. It takes a little bit, because sometimes it's mouth to mouth, or I know a person who can do that, so it takes a little while. But they give it a lot of importance. So I think one thing that it's interesting is that I was talking with somebody, and it's true that academics, we have our own networks like ResearchGate or things like that, but the industry has its own networks like LinkedIn and things like that. So sometimes we have people in the department coming from knowledge exchange perspective, and they sort of talk to us about, joining in LinkedIn and try to make our profile more accessible to the industry. So I think our department is very active in that. So there are many ways that we are encouraged.
Okay, good.
So 2 or 3 years ago, there was no network between industry and education at university. But now they understand it is important to collaborate between university and industry. So now some of the large companies contact to university. And now we have a good connection. Now we have, and also from the Ministry of Fishery. They also support us. We can collaborate with them, and they also support not funding but other
Facilitating?
Yeah.
Like in Malaysia, there are many people, farmers that are looking to collaborate with universities if possible. However, like what they said previously, when the university collaborate with the farmers, they want to keep the results to themselves. But instead, the university tries to publish everything they can find. So that's a problem.
Data, yeah, okay.
I wanted to say as well that in our department there is a student association, and the student association every year organize a careers event day, but they do it themselves, so we don't get involved at all. It's just the students, and they invite, and it has grown a lot in the last few years, and they have a lot of industry coming and the industry, they have different tables, different stands, and they sort of explain to the students what they are doing and what do they need, and if they are looking for somebody, and the students again speak to them, and that's become a very, very popular event, and it's purely organized by the students.
But you guys are also there making contact with the industry?
Well,
it's merely the students?
It's for the students, yeah. You might want, if you want, just to catch up with a few people that you might, you know they are coming on the day, but it's purely for them to develop their own connections.
Thank you. Alright, yes.
So yeah, we organize every year school birthday party. So we invite company farmers. They come and we have exchange at this party. But the contact with the industry and farmers is every day, because we in professional courses you have to have contact with companies for students, and we have 250 students, so it's a 250 company to have to contact each year. So it's a
good network. It's a good existing network.
Yes, and it's a work, everyday work. On one night for drinking.
Comes with it.
And eating seafood.
Oysters.
Yeah.
Bassett too. Close. Go there at the end of this week. Visit you. Yes.
It's, like Cambodia, we have mostly that the fishery product is from natural, so the aquaculture is just developed. We don't have much about the company or like that.
Yes.
Mostly that they say, like maybe I think like 10 years ago, they say that 10% is just aquaculture, and also that we say and 9% from natural fish. Now change and become, and also that we have some people they try to invest with the aquaculture, but actually now it's the.
And what about training in aquaculture? It's also then just starting?
Yeah, we studied mostly that we link to the farmer, and also the middle farm is not the industry or some the big farm, it's just small farm. So easy that if we send to our student and also our staff to the farm, they happy because it's like balance between the knowledge and the farmer. When they go, they happy and they want to ask the technique or something like. Although that we have a limit, but if we compare to farmer, because it's a new, before they come in, it's mostly that it's a natural. But now we change, maybe they say the number will come to.
Yeah, so your university will grow in the aquaculture part.
And also, you know that the number of students, sometimes the people they understand that now the fishery resources it collapse, and they don't send the student or the children to study in the fishery. So like the number become too down. You know that this year just 10 students from graduate from our.
But do you have an education for aquaculture? Do you have a course for aquaculture?
We have a in bachelor degree. We have four specialized. Like they say, after we have like 3 years, so general, and the last year we tried one processing, and one to aquaculture, and one to natural management, and one to the fishing gear or something. Yes. But now fishing gear is gone.
Student numbers going down.
Yeah, and mostly they say, oh, why you need to.
And do you then have the skilled staff for aquaculture?
Yes, we.
So that's
not specialized in aquaculture, but we say just in fishery science. But we are two parts. Some they say major in aquaculture. Yeah, it's not. And we try
I think
to.
it's similar to here, very similar.
Yeah, and now we we want to change from the fishery. In Khmer they say fishery mean like. Catching from the natural, but actually they say aquaculture is mean like raising like fish like that. We don't use, but we want to change the word that can be absorb the student to come.
Yes.
Yeah, because they expect that natural. Why we study? Because like it's gone, and sometimes you know they say if it's gone, we must study. We want to do is more better. And some they say, if compare, you know, that the industry in Cambodia and compared to Vietnam, so mostly company just start and collapse because like Vietnam is more potential, and they have like I think high tech or something like that. We cannot.
The Cambodia population is small.
Yeah, before we depend on the natural. But now not depend, you know, like that time is the big like small population, and now become to 16 million, around like that. Maybe it's grow and become to the problem. You know that sometimes government, I don't know why they say they warning, don't agree the farmer or private sector to grow the fish, because if you grow the fish, we will catch from natural. But you know, from natural, they get the feed from our lake to the Vietnam and send the fish from Vietnam to Cambodia. And this like, but now the government try change and stop this, and now you can grow the fish.
Yes.
It's just recently, maybe around.
It's not good for Vietnam.
Good for Vietnam. You know that we catch the natural like small. But now you know the fish like small and expensive. Yeah. It's more expensive than the big, but become to not go to Vietnam before, you know, just throw away. But now we don't know, so it's more expensive. We look at the diversity.
Okay, I think we did a very good job. Any other comments on this topic? No? And I would like to close this meeting and allow you a bathroom visit and a coffee break outside. And in the meantime, I will be preparing my setting the scene. Oh, okay.
We have to take a picture. Our room, not
You take it?